Hello, I'm Lexi Schultz. Welcome to our Design Commune session. Light the Way, designing for a refreshed, more hopeful way of living. Thank you for being here today. I'm very excited about today's talk because joining me are some of the most creative minds in the home, furniture, and lifestyle design industries. And they'll be engaging us in a three-part conversation. In part one, we'll be talking about designing for positivity for the home. Curators Aya Macedo of Allow Design and Nicole Tan of Boone will discuss designs that evoke positive emotions. They will also explore the idea of maaliwalas, a Filipino term that implies good flow of light and air. Part two is all about balance. Curator Steny Cuyutute will discuss the importance of maintaining balance in the home and interior design. Lastly, part three is our roundtable discussion, where we gather product designers Danley Ruiz, Rachel Dagnalan, and Rita Nazareno and Gabby Lichauco of Nazareno Lichauco for a discussion on how Filipino design is lighting the way towards interiors and spaces that are balanced, comforting, uplifting, and of course, aesthetic. I would also like to invite you to visit the famed Hop-In Expo page for the visual exhibition and for sourcing inspiration. You may also go to fameplus.com to see and download the images from the exhibition. Lastly, I'd also like to join you to try out networking right here on Hop-In, where you can connect with exhibitors, buyers, and other people from the design community for quick and meaningful one-on-one conversation. So at this point, we have so much in store, guys, so let's get started.
What about a home evokes feelings of happiness and positivity? Architects Aya Maceda of Allow Design and Nicole Tan of Boone have curated spaces that explore the look and feel of maaliwalas, which means good flow of light and air, a basic tenet of a refreshed and inspiring home. Aya Maceda is a Filipino-Australian architect and professor at Parsons School of Design in New York. She's a co-founder of Allow, a collaborative studio led by her and her partner, James Kars, which has offices in New York and New Orleans and works with clients from around the world. Aya has worked with prestigious practices in Australia, Singapore, and the Philippines, specializing in the design of complex, award-winning residential and institutional projects, from highly detailed single dwellings to public libraries and university buildings. Nicole Tan is the founding designer of Boone, an online platform and workspace that houses suppliers and designers who are ready to help you design your dream home with just a few swipes and clicks. Nicole is an architect and interior designer who takes on a hands-on approach in all of Boone's projects, from planning the detailing and furniture, fixtures and fabrics, to actual implementation. Nicole has worked on residential and commercial projects around the country. This is part one of our discussion, Designing for Positivity.
Joining me for part one are our curators who have designed spaces and products that evoke happiness and positivity, which, given our present circumstances, we could all use a lot of. Well, now we have with us curators Nicole Tan of Boone and Aya Maceda of Allow Design. Welcome, ladies. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having us.
All right, so my first question is this. What is designing for positivity? Maybe, Aya, you can start the ball rolling.
To me, designing for positivity is designing for wellness. A design that makes us feel free, not constricted. And it's especially crucial during this time of uncertainty. While we have been moving with the direction of contemporary design, the concept of maaliwalas persists in the Filipino modern movement, because this concept is ingrained in how we define beauty, spatially as Filipinos. The aesthetic concept of maaliwalas means bright, expansive, generous, open, and free-flowing. This is a concept with non-Western roots, and it's familiar and embodied in our indigenous dwellings that are open-plan, filtered light, breathed, and extended beyond the limits of the walls. There is a sensory feeling of joy when you experience a space that exemplifies this quality. You're able to breathe. There is a delight in the way the light enters the space, the way the breeze passes through and touches your skin. We are a sharing Filipino, and a part of what makes us whole is being in a space that is expansive and allows us to commune with family and with nature.
Thanks for that, Aya. Well, now I'd like to go over to Nicole and what your concept is when it comes to designing for positivity.
Designing for positivity. So I really think it's also related to our concept of being maaliwalas, which is a local term that doesn't have a direct translation. It describes a space that is inviting and attractive with a characteristic of being bright, spacious, welcoming, and having unimpeded flow. I'm happy that we have this term. I somehow think it's also related to our identity or how Filipinos are very hospitable, like what Aya said, our characteristic of being generous. So I think that's how we describe that concept of space and this local sensibility of Maliwalas.
I know, and I love how we have so many terms that are, just basically ours, maaliwalas. I mean, how do you translate that really in English, right? Or even gigil. I mean, these things are predominantly Filipino, right? So I super love it. And I love how you've adapted the concepts to both of your spaces. Now, Nicole has curated for us the home and Aya, the beach house. I'm looking forward to seeing both of these. They'll be presenting their curated spaces and explaining their process in much detail in a while. But just before they do, Aya and Nicole, very quickly, what were the key considerations in designing your spaces and choosing the furniture? So maybe we can start with you, Aya.
Well, the main consideration was how to create a balance in proportion and materiality, to curate the pieces that complement this tropical modernist architecture space we designed. And although I'm practicing from New York and working globally, I can proudly say that my work is very Filipino. So this design space is contemporary, but the spatial arrangement, tactility, spaciousness, and seamless connection to the landscape is familiar, achieving this quality of simplicity and the quality of maaliwalas that is ingrained in my own psyche as a Filipino designer. So the goal here was to create a generous open space to commune and feel a lightness and to feel free. Here, I was searching for modernity only in proportion, but those with the qualities that make us feel human by curating pieces that felt handmade and celebrated Filipino craft.
Thank you for that. Nicole?
For my spaces, what we considered were first for the dining, what we had envisioned is kind of had like marine elements. So maybe it's a very casual lounging atmosphere, but very subtle hints of nature. And so the product selection from Design Commune was really extensive, and we were able to achieve the space that we were looking to create. For the work from home space, the kind of atmosphere that we wanted was that we wanted that the user to feel that although it's a part of his home, we want to encourage productivity, we want to encourage creativity, we want to try something different aside from the other strategies that we employed for work, the ones where if you orient your desk against the wall, you're facing a wall, and then you try to eliminate distractions. We want to turn it into a different kind of space where maybe if you're oriented towards the center of the room, you can feel like the main activity in that room is now work, because your rooms now in the current situation, they transform throughout the day. So that's what we're trying to do for the work from home space. We want the main activity for the room. It should also align with what he's trying to do in his routine.
All right. And with that, we're super excited to see what you guys have to offer. Thank you so much, Aya and Nicole, for all of your insights. Aya and Nicole will now be showing us their curated spaces. But before we do, just a reminder, please don't forget to visit the Fame Hop-In Expo page for the visual exhibition. You may also go to fameplus.com to see and download the images. Without further ado, here are the curated spaces. Enjoy the good vibes.
We at Boone were tasked to design dining and work from home spaces that evoke a resort atmosphere in the home. For the dining setting, we envisioned a casual, clear waterside space where family could gather in a relaxed and informal manner. With the products from Design Commune, we were able to create a space that bring together natural materials, local craftsmanship, and soft, organic silhouettes. The main furniture composition is a 6-seater dining table from Calfern featuring a modern weave profile as its base. Around it are woven chairs from A. Garcia and a rattan stool made in a playful and interesting shape from Murillo. Introducing an element inspired from marine life is the fan coral pendant lamp from Decor, which ties together the dining space and its waterside concept. Table accessories from Nature's Legacy and their Toby White and Sand collection also give a hint of coastal colors, while bone china ceramic vases from CSM give interesting capis and pandanus fruit shapes. A Toyo bottle from Celestial Arts Sari Sari Store Edition might be one of the most amusing accents in the space. Finally, we complete the entire composition with a bar cabinet that's both geometric and biomorphic, made locally by JB Woodcraft. We thought about designing a work-from-home space that encouraged creativity. Our surroundings influence how our habits are formed. It's surprising to learn about the details of our dwellings and how they make us feel in our daily lives. For this work-from-home space, we intentionally selected a round table from Zarate over a rectangular one. We wanted to suggest to the user that he could be oriented towards the center of the room as the room transforms into his home office or studio, and the main activity becomes working. We hope that it could cultivate productivity, rather than facing a wall, forcing focus, or trying to eliminate all distractions. The round table setting is paired with a comfortable upholstered armchair from Albero and the Sol side table from Stone Sets International, which doubles as a stool should a family member want to drop in for a welcome chat. A table lamp from Finale is set should you need it for work that continues into the evening. Other furniture included in the setting are the cabinet charging station from E. Murillo to manage all your gadgets, and a mirror and floor wall hanger from Prismic & Brill's commuter collection to check your appearance before online meetings. Lastly, pack away all your work materials and tools for the day into a graphic woven bag made locally by S.E. Vizcarra.
The concept of maliwalas is central to the design of my curated space. This beach house is a current project from my design studio, Alao. It is situated in a waterfront site in Kona Bay, Hawaii. The site enjoys uninterrupted views to the Pacific Ocean. Similar to the Philippine stone houses, the open-plan living space is located on the second floor, while private cocoonish spaces remain on the ground floor. There are 2 vaulted ceilings connected by a skylight to let light filter in. There is a generous veranda that extends the living space to the exterior and sliding doors that pocket into the walls to create an uninterrupted indoor and outdoor living experience. This design evokes positivity as it allows a layering of spaces and a feeling of expansion. When you're in the living room, you see the veranda beyond, then the pool, then the exterior cabana, and the view of the ocean. As it relates to the furniture curation for this space, the driving decisions here were how to create a balance of proportion, as there are breezes that flow through the house, and this house will witness spectacular storms. I wanted furniture that felt grounded, had weight, were low in scale, but still kept the quality of visual lightness. I would imagine breezes not only flowing through the space, but through the woven furniture as well. You can see this in the selection, such as the dining chairs by Stanley Ruiz for Winner's Furniture, where the solid base that seemed planted to the ground had a light mesh backing. This is paired with quid chairs from Murillo, Manila, lamps by Vito Selma, Majore coffee table, and stone set side table. Again, in the living room, there is a balance of low and grounded, with a Paris sectional by Philux paired with a modern rattan lounge chair by A. Garcia. For the veranda, I selected a large proportion woven sofa by Jaire Forge called the Isabella Sofa, balanced by the woven cafe dining chairs from Coast Pacific, and a convertible dining and ping pong table by E. Murillo. For the lamps, I selected a pairing of luminous shelled globe pendants by Gold Trio, and adjacent to it is a more complex large feature pendant by Decor. The spaces are accessorized by planters by Stanley Ruiz for Hacienda Handicrafts and Vito Selma. And lastly, for the cabana, I selected a lighter, low-profiled Acco outdoor living room set consisting of a love seat, lounge chairs, and table for sunset and late-night lounging by the ocean. I selected a dark-colored finish for the furthest space so your eye can go up to that last layer, but selected a furniture with woven backing to allow a feeling that light and air can pass through, to complete a space that is maaliwalas, a space that breathes.
And there you have it, our inspiring maaliwala spaces curated by Aya Maceda of Allow Design and Nicole Tan of Boom. Next up, we're gonna find the perfect balance when designing and decorating our spaces. Stay tuned.
Symmetry, equilibrium, calmness. These are words that are synonymous to balance. But what exactly is balance in interior design? And just how do you achieve it? Stephanie Steny Koyitote will break down the concept of balance in her curated space. Steny is the founder and managing director of Casa Bella Home and Living, which carries the most luxurious and elite design pieces from the world's leading brands, Casina, Kettle, Moroso, Catalan Italia, Nova Mobili, and Henge. She also manages Design Story, the official dealer of the brands Hey, Stellar Works, and Tradition in the Philippines. She is also the creative director for Fig and Vine, the country's premier floral studio. Before her current ventures, Steny worked in corporate finance, but with her passion for the arts, she has now found herself deeply immersed in the creative world of interior and lifestyle design. And she will share with us her expertise in part 2 of our discussion, all about balance.
For the second part of our talk, we are going to find our balance. Curator Steny Tay, co-founder of Casa Bella, will discuss the importance of maintaining an equilibrium in home and interior design, how balance can be achieved by combining seemingly contrasting concepts like traditional materials and contemporary spaces, and how color can also tip the balance towards spaces with equilibrium. Hi, Steny. Thanks for joining us.
Hi, Lexi. Thanks for having me.
Well, I have to say that I love your backdrop. What a beautiful home you have.
Thank you.
All right, so let's get right to it. In general, when we say balance, it usually means even distribution or correct proportions or even equal element. What I want to know is, in the world of design, what does balance, or specifically finding the balance, mean? And why is it so important?
Well, you know what? My mom has been a big influence of mine, and she's my design inspiration. And I was exposed a lot to the principles of feng shui growing up, which is essentially harmony in a space. Finding the balance for me means having good flow. It's not really being exact or having the perfect symmetry. That's just one part of it. It's about having a good mix of the lighter and heavier elements, taking into account space, color, textures, and lighting. A space that is welcoming and not overwhelming. Finding the balance is essential in life, and so it is in the world of design.
Well, I find that your backdrop sort of speaks for itself because, there are elements that are sort of balanced, and yet you also have those sort of tricky ones that it still works, even though, let's say, it's 2 and 1 or 1 and 2. So it really is pretty much a formula. But you created a showroom for us that sort of conveys your interpretation of balance and design. You'll be presenting the space in detail later on, but maybe you can give us a quick rundown of what exactly you did to find your balance in your space.
Well, when curating the space, I kept in mind discussions I've had with designers and the clients we've worked with over the years. So I pulled up pieces that from experience seem to have a lasting pull. Working on my bias, I put in a few iconic pieces which relate well when put together with works from local designers. I envisioned a setting which has a touch of art, understated elegance, lightness, and comfort. Well, it's kind of what you see from my backdrop.
And how did you go about choosing pieces from the Fame Plus catalog from your showroom? I mean, I'm sure that you had a hard time because we have so many beautiful pieces in there.
Exactly. It was difficult to choose, but I'm fortunate enough to be in a job where I get to visit a wide range of homes in the Philippines and appreciate how local elements are mixed with Italian furniture in a space. So I chose to incorporate local lighting pieces such as the Finale table lamp on the bedside table and the E. Muria floor lamp. And also the Bon Ace chessboard and the California desk container are interesting pieces that I added. Art and traveling have been a big passion of mine my whole life, and I enjoy learning about pieces by visiting art galleries, and it is the same with furniture. For the rooms, each Casina or Marosa piece has a story behind it, and the local pieces I chose fortunately merged into the story and the entire curation.
All right, so this is the last question before we show your space. What are the most basic principles of balance in design that our viewers can very easily execute in their own spaces? Because of course, apart from drawing inspiration from what they see today, they sort of want to apply it in their homes too.
Well, I take visual weight into consideration each time I design a space. And for me, balance is arranging visual elements in a way that gives the space proper composition. I would advise others who are designing their own homes or space to take their time, don't rush, and do not be afraid to mix planning with trial and error. For example, by placing new pieces when you see them in your travels. It really helps to make the interior feel personal and to tell a story, which, well, hopefully is pleasing to the senses.
Well, thank you so much for that, Steny. Now, before we show Steny's showroom, please don't forget to visit the Fame Hop-In Expo page for the visual exhibition. You may also go to fameplus.com to see and download the images. But for now, it's time to feast your eyes on the space and pieces that Steny has curated for us. And here they are.
In keeping with the theme of balance, I do believe that when one curates a space, one must first understand and respect the space. Even for our own Casabella showroom, I made sure that people must walk in and not feel a heavy weight to the space. It is important to ask yourself at the end of each design process of whether or not the composition and curation feels right. I'll be showing you two spaces. First is the bedroom. I tried to create a space that was relaxing, but also very mindful of the energy it brings. The bedroom is an integral part of the home, so chosen pieces must bring a sense of comfort and completeness. I believe that the bedroom is a place for relaxation, so I wanted one to feel, with one look, as if he or she is completely immersed in the space. For the bedroom, I placed the ultra-comfy but also sustainable and functional Casina Biombo bed by Patricia Orquiola. As you can see, it comes with side pockets to place gadgets and reading materials. The locally made table lamps also go well with a Biombo side table. Placed in front of the bed is the iconic civil bench, a tribute to Pierre Jeanneret. And of course, working from home has become essential for everyone. The sled desk by Rodolfo Dordoni and the classic LC7 armchair by Le Corbusier are among my favorite pieces, which I use for my own home office. Again, I decided to add Filipino Design accessories to perfectly add texture to the modern pieces. On the side, we added a reading nook, a pair of comfortable P22 armchairs, and the iconic LC4 chase. Around it, we can see the E. Muria floor lamp and the chess pieces to match. Meanwhile, the living room is where everyone gathers together for conversation, which is why I decided to include iconic pieces which have impact but don't overpower the look of the room. The CC tapis rug doubles as an art piece as well. For the living room, the spiral staircase cascades into this airy floor-to-ceiling windowed space. The subtle curves of each piece of furniture introduces a certain softness to the room's clean lines. Patricia Orquiola's Gauguin sofa and armchairs are distinctive in its ability to appear lightweight despite its likeness to a smoothened stone, the inspiration behind the design. The industrial brass finish of the starlight suspended lights and the coffee tables by Henge add character and drama to the space. Varying textures from local artisans as seen in the Hasped Design coffee table, Jacinto stool by Vito Selma, TWWA planter, Acento collection side chair, and Benzon lamp bring attention to each piece without overshadowing the other. I envisioned a space that evokes an emotional response and one that is very personal.
Thank you, Steny, for your beautifully curated showroom. I don't know about you, but the first two parts of our talk have inspired me to sort of hit refresh on some of the areas of my own space. I'll probably be checking each room out later. But anyway, we're down to our last segment. We're going to gather our product designers next for a roundtable discussion on how Filipino design can light the way and bring forth a more refreshed, hopeful, and beautiful way of living.
Industrial designer Stanley Ruiz came home to the Philippines after years of living in New York, where he worked for various design companies, among them, that of famed potter and designer Jonathan Adler. He then established Estudio Ruiz, his design consultancy firm, and has since taken on both personal and collaborative projects. Stanley has been a long-time consultant for SIDEM and for the Design Center of the Philippines. After years of working with local design luminaries Kenneth Cobenpue, Jingoy Wenceseso, and Buji Layog, industrial designer Rachel Dagnalan created Rada Collab. The design firm is also a platform for designers, craftsmen, and makers to connect and collaborate. Rachel is a product design and development consultant and mentor. And most recently, she worked with local brands and manufacturers for the New York Now digital market. Rita Nazareno and Gabby Lichauco of Nazareno Lichauco are the dynamic duo behind the creative direction of Philippine collections for international trade shows, most notably the famed Maison et Objet in Paris. Rita is creative director of home and lifestyle brands SC Viscara and Zacharias 1925. And Gabby is an industrial designer and the principal designer of design firm Open Studio. The mentors have brought a contemporary point of view to SIDEM's product development program, fearlessly marrying innovation and tradition in the creation of outstanding pieces. All four are on a mission to elevate awareness for homegrown design. In part 3 of our discussion, we gather Design Commune's product designers and creative directors for a roundtable discussion on how to create an environment that's inspired and inspiring, and how Filipino design lights the way for a refreshed, more hopeful way of living.
Well, joining me are product designers and creative directors Stanley Ruiz, Rachel Dagnalan, and Rita Nazareno and Gabby Lichauco of Nazareno Lichauco. Hi guys, thanks for joining us. All right, so let's get the ball rolling with Stanley first. What role do you feel design plays in our lives today, given the present circumstances and the not so certain future for all of us? Obviously, we're all going through a pandemic at this particular point in time.
I think design gave us some level of security by way of connecting us to the outside world during this time. We know that we can get the essentials, order food, all these services. All these services are products of design. But that's connecting us to the outside world. But within the confines of our own space, our home, I think design provided solutions to the challenges brought about by this, by our prolonged stay indoors. We know that we can set up a good workstation, maybe become more comfortable in our space. We can set it up just by tweaking, so I think that's where design really contributed during this time.
Well, Stanley talked about, the word that I got from him, Rita, is solutions. How has design responded to the pandemic this far? I mean, how else do you think design would or should respond in the coming months or years? Because, we really don't know where things are going at this point. Everything is very unclear.
Yeah. Well, I think because of the pandemic, more people are embracing the need for deeper meaning, whether in their lives, in how they run their businesses, even how their pieces are designed. There's, so much gloom out there that you want something that makes your heart skip a beat, right? But design and the creative pursuits have always been adaptable and flexible and affirming even. I think at the start of the pandemic, diba, we were designing and making our own masks and face shields, right? We were watching films created by filmmakers and reading books created by authors. Those creative pursuits gave us life. And now, almost 2 years on, we are designing our lives, we are adapting to our surroundings and our needs and our desires. And I think because of the pandemic, we are spending more time both at home and also outdoors. Less time at work, less time at restaurants or cinemas. We're entertaining less. But in one hand, I think what we are now buying and putting in our homes are things that give us joy. I mean, fashion, art, design, they should not confine us, they should not box us, but rather they should help us express ourselves. I think I feel very fortunate with Gabby, with Nazareno Lechauco. We're able to express and respond to the pandemic through design and how we work. You know, we were in the middle of product development at the design exhibition headed for Milan when the lockdown happened. We continued to develop collections throughout, and that in and of itself was our response. Our designs generally, and the way I think we push our personal and design boundaries. We want something individual and expressive and well made, and something really that will make you smile.
Well, exactly. Rita was talking about trying to find the joy in a very tough situation. Rachel, how can good design address some of these issues? Because I know that a lot of people have also gone through things like mental health, because it's also no joke to be locked up in your homes for a certain amount of time, and even the businesses and industries having a very hard time. So it's also about finding help with mental health, finding the work-life balance in the home as well, and the lack of personal interactions. As you can see, all of us are doing this via the computer, via Zoom. So what was your experience during the pandemic?
Yeah, so during the pandemic, as I was also living far from family, I was actually living alone since the start of the pandemic, and I only got to go home last December. So creating a space where we thrive and to boost our mood is very important. So color is very essential in establishing a space where our moods get better, and making a space where we feel happier, and having work-life balance is also important, that we try to make time for ourselves and for people we love so that we can make the most of our days.
Well, Rachel was talking about color choice because, a lot of times, I mean, as you can see my backdrop, black makes me happy for some reason. I don't know why. I'm sure that a lot of you will maybe disagree, but color can evoke certain positivity as well. But Gabby, when it comes to choosing decor furniture, how does that evoke positivity? Are the colors, prints, and design elements very important in terms of triggering happiness or even optimistic thoughts?
Well, I think like what Rita and Stanley and Rachel mentioned earlier on, that I think things started to become very personal for people. We all started, I guess everybody started looking at trends, right? What looks good at home. And I think bottom line is it's a personal choice, right, for each and every person. I guess through people started, okay, we'll do like natural colors, and then eventually, I guess because you're stuck at home, you start experimenting on things, right? So they will go through the internet, look for things with more color, maybe start with something like small pieces, tabletop pieces or whatever, right? If they're a bit more conservative in that sense, and eventually, I guess they realize, oh, we can take in more colors, right? And more patterns, or it's I think it's the time of experimentation for everybody, and I think that's what we're all trying to offer. Each and every designer here is also experimenting with new things, because it's this whole setup of ours is all new to everyone. But yeah, it's eventually you like it. You like a certain pattern, mixing patterns, mixing colors. At this point, doesn't really there's no right or wrong about it. It's just whatever you feel like, right? So I guess people can't really judge anymore if your place looks like this or looks like that or paduy or advanced in terms of design and aesthetic. So it doesn't really matter as long as I guess as long as the person who lives in that space is happy about it.
I guess to a certain extent, design, just like art and a lot of other things, it's quite subjective. And at this point,
It is.
I guess people just really have to find the joy in
Yeah, it's a personal.
yeah, you're in this space
Personal.
for an extended period of time. But when it comes to redesigning and maybe buying furniture, at this point, movements are a lot more constricted, and still it continues to be. We're not sure when things will open up completely again. So how do you create a space with what you have that'll still feel sort of refreshed and affirmative and uplifting? I mean, apart from the people that you have in your house, right? Because sometimes you're so used to having them around that you also maybe need your own personal space. How do you do that?
For one, I think it's discovering little areas in your home, right? I mean, they're already fixed in a way where pre-pandemic you have like certain areas like a study area, or if not, then it's a living room, a living space with dining all combined together. So I think it's reinventing the space. So and again, going back to the personal lives of people and how they need the space, right? So that's where you base it on. If you need a workspace that needs more acoustic or more privacy, then you kind of convert a small room or maybe a corner of the living room or something like that. So again, it's modifying the whole space itself. But what's interesting, I think, is people are discovering, oh, I can do this, right? I can put a little nook in one area, right? I can put a drinking open bar side by the window, right? So it's fun that we are all discovering these things in our own home spaces, right? Since before we'd always be going out, right? Like 80% of the time we're out, right? Whether it's work, stuck in traffic, traveling, and homes have just become like a place to stay, to sleep, eat, watch TV, and right? But now it's like everything else. It's a self-discovery, I think.
Well, you had me at open bar. Anyway,
Yeah, I got one there at the back.
Since we're on the subject of products and pieces for the home, Rita and Gabby, Nazareno Lichalco most recently worked with local home and furniture brands on a spring-summer 2022 collection for Maisonette Objet and more. The collection is nostalgically named In Any Kind of Place. I love it. It already evokes joy for me, actually. What was the theme that inspired, by these events? And is this an example of design responding to where we are now? I mean, as we were talking about it a while ago. Rita, go ahead.
Well, in any kind of place, no, it's taken from a series of poems by Gertrude Stein entitled Tender Buttons. So it has sections entitled Objects, Food, and Rooms, which basically are what we're designing for. So in Tender Buttons, Gertrude Stein experimented with words and construct, making what I quote, familiar words seem almost like strangers. So Gertrude Stein, she was a mentor and a guide to the lost generation in the 20s. They're like a collection of creators left kind of meandering about after the devastating 1918 flu pandemic and the First World War. So the group included Alice B. Toklas, Pablo Picasso, Matisse, Hemingway. And the irony of it is that the lost generation would help future generations find themselves. So, and you wonder how? Well, because they invented modern art. They wrote literature in a different way. They gave people new meaning. So in the conceptualization and in the design process, Nazareno Lichalco were influenced by making the familiar seem new, like strangers. So we looked at the various influences of the last century, since the last global pandemic, to create something kind of like the past looking towards the future, kind of translating these through designs and craftsmanship that celebrated the notion of, time and place, of experimental and contemporary pieces, embracing different perspectives and individuality and self-expression through objects. Somehow we're looking at the past and how they thought of the future and creating our own worlds and our own future. So we looked at the outdoors, we looked at nostalgic sports, from paddling, from duckpin bowling, from skateboarding, and biking and ping pong. We looked at the roaring 20s, from Art Deco to like motorcycles with, the sidecars, Italy in the 50s and the graphic posters. We looked at California in the 70s, from Palm Springs, the desert, to surfing. We also looked at Manila in the 70s. We looked at Philippine culture with nostalgia, from food of our childhood, like, sapin-sapin, through things to be had in sari-sari stores like toyo bottles, and tansan and pasalubongs from pastries abroad, right? And the calderos we cooked on, and going duckpin bowling on Buendia and Cher's hair. I think translating these feelings through this design gave us joy, and hopefully gave us and the manufacturers the same thrill, and ultimately will also give the buyers in their homes that spark, that thrill, that thing that will make them smile. So, Gab?
That's fine.
I think Rita said enough.
Yeah.
No, but it's true though. It's almost like
Done.
how I explain it to myself is vintage is the new cool, especially for this generation. Like they look to things of the past, whether it be our, those lunch boxes that we had that were more of like, they would rust up, but they were so, now it's cool as opposed to buying the new sparkly things that, are available. So I see how that sort of comes into play. But tell us the process behind the development of the products behind the collection, because you can have the thought process and the emotion, right, that it's evoking. But how do you come up with the products for that?
Come up with ideas, and then we start looking for, or we start thinking who or which company the concept fits with. Right. And I think from there on, it's like, okay, we know like some companies, a lot of them specialize in certain materials and techniques. We also try to understand their type of buyers, and also what sort of, if they do have like design direction for their company. So these are the things that we have to consider before we pitch the ideas to them. Sometimes it's a bit off from their direction, so we have to really convince them that it'll work. Or if not, then I guess the fun part is they're also open to experimenting. And we mentioned that when you get into, or when you start participating in these online platforms, trade show platforms, right? You're competing with a bigger market, because everybody's on board, compared to a physical show where there's limitations in terms of cost, like traveling, setting up booths, and all that. Now it becomes more accessible for more companies to participate. That means there's more competition. So design is very important. Execution in terms of content as well is also key for buyers to check out your products, and then eventually your entire line, even older collections.
Yeah, you talk about going to different companies, I guess, for the different products. But sometimes I feel as though there is one mind. There's a certain curation that it almost feels like, of course, every company has different products on offer, but it still fits the general mood or theme of the epoch that we're living in. Is that the case necessarily, Rita?
I think it is, and I think it's different for everyone. It's different for each manufacturer, as Gabby said. So we really quite personalize and focus it per manufacturer, per technique, their expertise, and their materials.
Well, with Rachel, she got to work very closely with some of the brands on the development of their products, especially with the latest edition of the Maisonette Objet and More. And one is the Macaroni Chandelier by Liha, and the Wood Bark Paper Bowl and Vase for Indigenous. Now, can you tell us more about these pieces, Rachel? Because they were talking about going to certain companies for products, but you were part of the product development, or you saw it come to life.
Yeah. So the macaroni lamp for that one piece is also a piece for New York now. So they also brought that to MOM, and also the one from Indigenous is also a piece I designed for them for Design Commune. So these pieces, let's begin with the one from that one piece, the macaroni lamp, was inspired from the Slinky toy, if you remember, the rainbow-like toy. So I wanted to design pieces that makes us remember something from our childhood. So that's one. And being a piece that is very playful, so people get to question like what is this like, or what is it made of, and knowing that that one piece does a lot of linear objects, and that is something new to them, to create something more curvilinear rather than edgy. So that's a new thing for that one piece. And the one from Indigenous, the paper bark pots, since people are stuck in their homes and want to bring in more plants and bring in the outside inside. So creating more vessels for our plants would be a good buy for our buyers.
Well, I feel that there's both function and nostalgia as well. What were the initial reactions, let's say, to the comparison to the Slinky? Because I think the Slinky is pretty universal in terms of, it's just a simple childhood toy, made of metal, or I mean plastic in the recent years, but it just brings a lot of simple joy. How are the initial reactions to that? Or are we still in the testing phase, or have you already presented?
Yeah, I mean, they already did the prototype, but we haven't really discussed thoroughly like how was the feedback from their buyers. But I guess many people were caught to the concept, and even there were inquiries also coming from my end, and I would also try to help out Miss Rowan of that one piece if we could expand more the collection and not just one shape, and create the concept in different objects as well.
But would you say that function would edge out to playfulness or design necessarily, or does it always have to go hand in hand?
For me, it has to go hand in hand, because first and foremost, people are attracted to things that bring about joy or reminds them of something special to them. So before anything else, we have to feel good about something we keep or we place in our homes. So it doesn't have to be always functional. That is art, and for it to be more marketable and to serve more people, it has to go hand in hand with function. So there's always a way to marry art with function, and that creates better design.
Thanks a lot for that. Well, Stanley, I'll go to you now. You collaborated with Jim Zarate Torres for the bow lamps and Weave Manila for the Aurora Borealis rug. Both pieces rich in color. As Rachel said, sometimes color also helps in terms of evoking, joy and happiness. Was it purely a coincidence that these two pieces were very, very bold and contemporary, or was it intentional for the season?
Well, I think for me, it was an opportunity to play with colors. I seldom use colors in my own work, but for these collaborations, I applied the brand colors. Like, for example, for Zarate, they do have a really nice palette. It's young, it's vibrant, and Jim helped out. It was a good collab. Showed me some of the colors, and I was like, okay, let's do that. Well, my design intent was for it to be to appear light, figure both visually and figuratively. So since they're using metal as their main material, right? I'd like it to be visually light. So aside from the design itself, the form itself, the colors played a significant role in bringing the design intent. For Weave Manila, I was really surprised with the way they colored their abaca. it's very highly saturated. It's a really good statement. I mean, to use that highly saturated abaca, which is not really, we don't often see that. We usually like see this muted, or if they're dyed, they're like, yeah, muted colors. So it's like, okay, maybe I'll do something like really large scale, bold in colors, and use it as a tapestry. Something unexpected of the usual use of abaca. So,
Well, it's nice to see that brands are sort of also just going out of the box, or because I guess with the pandemic, all rules are pretty much out the window. You usually have color of the year, right? So a lot of times people still, the Pantone color of the year. So people have sort of like a theme going. But if you say something like with Abaca, which is usually very earth toned, muted, and all of a sudden you see these vibrant colors. Is it because of the sign of the times, or is it because they just really want to offer something different, something more joyful, maybe?
yeah, I think that's the key there. With Weave Manila, they're very really open to it. When I saw their palette, I was like, okay, wow, yeah, let's use these colors. Let's apply these colors. And they were really into it, and they're like, okay, that's something different. Probably they've done it before as rugs, um, and that's and they're very open to making like sort of an art piece, you know. So yeah, it was good that we were able to. Well, I was able to convince them and to try it out. They were they were game.
Well, I think everybody also wants to be a little more experimental and out of the box, because we've all been pushed way outside our comfort zones in all industries. Stanley, you also designed the Abyss table lamp for Finale Furniture for this collection. Can you talk to us about that specific piece?
It was a product of their sculptural rattan pieces. So basically, just transformed it into a lamp, adding some twist to it, like putting a stone base, and yeah, so it's really taking their design language and using it and to reinforce their brand.
But let's talk about Filipino design in general. This question is for everybody, specifically how it relates to the topic today, obviously. With your work doing creative direction and product development with and for local brands, including your own, what has been the general feedback from the market? And what makes Filipino design special and distinctive? I mean, of course, with me, when I close my eyes, I can feel what Filipino design is or see it. But how would you explain it, and why the market is so attracted to it? Maybe we can start with you, Rita.
Well, I think we have our expertise in the skills with our techniques, whether it's wood carving, weaving, etc., and the use of our materials, whether it's abaca with or even wicker and wood, etc. I think a combination of really pushing into a more contemporary aesthetic, the use of our expertise, our techniques, as well as our materials. I think that's that to me is part of what you say is Philippine design. And it's been great. The reaction has been fantastic from both local and overseas buyers, press, etc. So it's been fantastic for my experience with Maisonette of J.
And I love how we're all even local, because sometimes it has to be appreciated abroad to be able to have people appreciate it back home. But I think now it sort of goes at the same time.
Yeah.
Would you say that that's the case?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, Gabby, your thoughts?
Same with Rita. Also, I think given that everybody's glued in their gadgets, right? So we're also used to seeing, again, that's what's out there and what's being produced and developed here, right? So somehow, when everybody would get glued on, Instagram, Facebook, and all these other um, platforms that display design. So it's getting used to it, right? And when you introduce something new, and it's like, oh, this is like Filipino made, and it's like designed by Filipino designers, and it looks different, right? So I guess it's a matter of getting used to it visually for everyone. So the interest also, I guess, then we're all doing nothing. So we all like looking at like within the box, right? And then now we're doing things outside the box, which is great. I think it's visual. It's visual appreciation. I would call that for everyone. We wouldn't be expecting, like you mentioned, it has to be appreciated by the foreigners first, and then the locals will follow because it's a trend, somewhat like that. But now it's not anymore. It's like, I have my own taste. I don't care what you like, what they like, right? This is my home. I want to try it. I want to buy this. I want to buy that, right? So from utilitarian pieces, because you're already done, fixing up your place, your little office, your little workplace, your little school area, right? And then you want to buy little other objects, and then they see like, hey, this is like Filipino made. They're like quirky. They're like, very colorful. From Stanley's rug to Rachel's designs to our designs. It's like, wow, like, hey, where can we get this, right? So again, it's good. It's an eye opener for everyone. But I think the visual part is very important, where everybody gets to see more things through just the internet, social media, and all that.
Here's another question for Rita and Gabby. You mentioned that all of those references, like the toy bottles and the tansan and, Cher's hair. Can you walk us through the design process of some of these specific products from your collection?
For the celestial arts, so they do wooden objects, trays, plates, etc. And we did last Maison et Objet, we did for them, we designed some Pinoy suites. So they were tabletop decoration that were based on Pinoy suites such as Yema and Polvoron and what do you call that? Turones de Casoy, etc. So we wanted to pursue that further, and then we looked at sari store items like toyo bottles then that can become either pen holders or vases and vessels, big tansan trays and chargers, etc. So that was fun. We really enjoyed that. And even like the chocomalos, no, Gab? What else is there, Gab? Cher's hair.
Well, the one of Finale, the cacti collection, but doesn't look like cacti, but came from Rita's idea since she's in LA and Hawaii. She's like, I want some cactus looking form. So we're like, sige, let's try this out. So, and what's great is Finale was open to it. Again, a company that's been working on bamboo, right? Laminating bamboo and rattan. But we're using a lot of natural materials. So I think this is their first or second time that they started using colors and also mixing different forms. So that was pretty fun. And it came out pretty well.
One of my favorites too is by JB Woodcraft. So JB, they're known for their traditional, very intricate wood carving. But they've been doing more contemporary pieces that just I think are fantastic. So Leslie and her team at JB have been really doing such an extraordinary job translating our designs. And so this for this particular one, we did the desert collection. It's a combination of references from the artist Agnes Martin, who actually retreated to a life in the desert, to psychedelic infrared photography, and Gabby's own spring chair. So it's a melange of different references. So that's one of my favorites. And same with Weave Manila. We were talking about Weave Manila earlier, and their woven abaca rugs.
Yeah.
So everything we've asked them to do, they've done with great craftsmanship and through hard times, Yana, and with a giggle, diba? Ian's just fantastic. And so for this particular season, we did the woven surfboards. They're very nostalgic yet very futuristic pieces. So I've been watching surfers almost daily where I'm at, so I'm keen on them. So yeah, so that's been fun.
Well, Rachel, what makes Filipino design special and distinctive in your opinion?
Yeah, so in my opinion, many Filipinos now get to appreciate more local products, especially when the pandemic happened. So we're closed from I mean the products coming from the imports were disrupted. So people got to buy more of what are locally available. So they were open to the new possibilities of finding better products or better alternatives from the Philippines rather from getting them from China or from other parts of the world. So what makes our products more special is that the Filipinos know that they are made by our craftsmen, and they are specially made by people who were doing this for a long time, and they also get to associate that with the place. Like if you are looking to gift someone this Christmas, or people from outside the Philippines, you would buy something from your hometown or from a place where a person reminds you of. So I think that what makes our products special, the personal touch put into products we offer to buyers outside the Philippines, and we bring more meaning to products through the personal touch. Yeah.
And I love it how also with the local buyers, it evokes a form of nostalgia, because let's say you're from a certain region and you want to gift something that maybe is part of yourself or to the person, part of that person. It also, it makes a difference because of our beautiful, artisanship from all parts of the Philippines. And Stanley, finally with you, what are your thoughts on the question?
Well, I think Filipino design is it's evolving. It always is evolving, but most especially in the recent years, I think we are at a crossroads where people are trying to break away. Well, designers are trying to break away from tradition without abandoning it completely. Paying homage to our techniques, materials, everything, but taking it to another direction or another level. Because as as Filipinos, there's a certain look that people from like the outside world expect of us. Like we all like they think that, oh, okay, the Philippine look is like baskets, weaving and stuff. It is, but there's more to it, and I think it can still evolve. It can inform our design direction. Definitely, it can set us apart from other countries because we have these techniques and materials available to us. But we can also augment it with our design know-how and our sensibilities. Because really, like to add to Gabby's point earlier, there's a certain look, like like the West. I think it's better for us to start defining and setting our design standards rather than it coming from the outside world. Yeah. So, and I think this is it. This is the time. There's no better time for design but now.
Right. And just, owning up to the honesty and the beauty and the craftsmanship of the Filipino and just offering it to the world. and not only to the world, but offering it locally too. I really love that sort of that concept of us loving our own as well. So at this point, let's go with Rita and Gabby. The big question to tie everything together: how can Filipino design light the way for a more hopeful way of living?
I think, as I said earlier, we're looking inward more and more nowadays, finding the light within us and finding the light in others, and realizing there is enough light in this world for everyone. So we have to, as designers, we have to create, and you have to let us create. So thank you to Saitab and whatnot. We have to share also, and we have to mentor, and we have to smile and be kinder and more compassionate and be a little crazy. I think maybe we need to kind of avoid this kind of maybe Catholic guilt and this notion that we are here to suffer. Maybe perhaps someone we can find the joy in what we do, in what we have, in what we see, and and when we create, that's when magic and light happens. So as Filipino creatives, as Stanley was just saying, this is our time to shine. It's our time to express ourselves in design, perhaps looking more intentionally at our materials, our techniques, our culture, our interests, even our kalokohan and our innate creativity. As Maya Angelou said, there are gold mines in your backyard, just dig.
I think in term of in a creativity in general, not just designing products, but as a whole, it opens up with design. I guess there's a lot of, like, example. In our case, it's tangible objects. So it's like designing, like what Rita mentioned. It's like, and Stanley is going experimental, right? And then that also is an opening for non-tangible designs, right? So I think in terms of just creativity alone, it opens up a lot of things for everyone. We're not bound to certain things, to certain directions. I think we're slowly seeing that, and the last 2 years, it allowed us the license to go crazy, right? And that goes beyond just being designing local products, but also exposing that and showing that abroad. Once they see these things, like, hey, look what's coming out, right? We can do that as well. I mean, why are we sticking to whatever we've seen, right? And then they start thinking, okay, I want to try this. So it's a matter of trying things, whether you're creative or not. What's interesting also is there's all these like webinars on design, on basic, using design tools, and you see everybody starting to experiment, learning all these things, whether it's therapeutic, whether they start coloring in Photoshop or Illustrator. It's opening up to the side of other people or everybody else that they never knew. That's what we try to do. We kind of open up, anything goes. So.
Now, the final question to Rachel and Stanley: when this is all over, what lessons and innovations should the design industry move forward with in general? And what should it leave behind? Or should it take everything with it? Because sometimes you are really an amalgamation of everything that you've had in the past. Rachel, we can start with you.
All right. So moving forward, what we have learned from the past can be taken as a lesson how we can do better in the future. And like for now, what the world needs is for us to spread more positivity. And so as designers, we have the power to create and to inspire through the products, not only products, but like for graphic designers, through spreading more good vibes in our social media, in the products we consume, in the everything we see around us. So as co-creators, like as makers, as designers, as artists, we try as much as possible to uplift the moods of people around us. And moving forward, we should be more hopeful that there is a better future for the Filipino creative industry, and we have to be more supportive of each other. Yeah.
Thanks, Rachel. Finally, Stanley.
Well, I think we should still we should keep on evolving, as I mentioned earlier, or making our approach more adaptive to the recent developments in design, not only in design but around us, like, because these everything affects the way we approach designing, like, the economy, climate. It really depends on how we react to these to our time, the milieu that we are in. If we become more rounded as people, as not only as designers or creatives, to have a better understanding of the things or events that are transpiring, I think that will make us more informed and better people.
Well, here's to a more hopeful way of living. Indeed, I'd like to thank all of our speakers this wonderful day. We'd like to thank Rachel, Stanley, Rita, and Gabby. It's been an absolute pleasure having you join us here on Fame Plus Market Days.
All right. Thanks.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And to our viewers, once again, I invite you to try out networking here on Hopin, where you can connect with exhibitors, buyers, and the design community from some one-on-one conversations. I hope that our presentations and discussions have inspired you to surround yourself with more positivity, balance, and hope. In our conversation with our curators, Steny Cuyutote, Aya Maceda of Allow Design, and Nicole Tan of Boone, they shared some key points on how we can achieve a home design that feels positive and maaliwalas. First impressions are important, and upon entering, a room should never feel weighed down. It should not feel constricting. It should be bright, expansive, generous, and free-flowing, creating a space that brings us joy, that can boost our mood, one where we thrive. That's what we want. The whole concept of maaliwalas equates to designing for wellness. So how can you create a space that feels more refreshed and hopeful? Our product designers, Stanley Ruiz, Rachel Dagnalan, Rita Nazareno, and Gabby Lichampo all agree that now is a good time for fun and experimentation. Discover all the little spaces in your home and reinvent them. There's no right or wrong about it. Just do whatever you feel like and whatever makes you happy. That, after all, is what Filipino design is all about. Filipino design is all about the personal touch. It's about creating things that are reminiscent of special memories, experiences, places, and people we hold dear. It is all about joy. And Filipino designers have taken the lead in lighting the way by spreading more positivity and good vibes with their designs. They're trying to break the mold as well, breaking away from traditions without abandoning them completely. And they're also always choosing to honor the techniques and materials that have helped set Filipino design apart in terms of craftsmanship and design. Moving forward, we can take the lesson from the past and help inform our present and future. When we gain a better understanding of everyone around us and of everything that transpires around us, the future can only look bright, refreshed, and infinitely inspiring. And this wraps up our Design Commune session. But we have so much more in store for you here on Fame Plus Market Days. Right after this is a Better Normal session by Design Launch, followed by a Fashion PH stage and a Fall-Winter 2022-2023 Trend Forecast session. And tomorrow, there will be more talks and presentations. Among them, a digital marketing talk with Georgina Wilson and SciTem Executive Director Pauline Suaco Juan. Of course, in case you miss out on some of our sessions or want to revisit them, you can watch the replays of all of our stage and session talks by clicking on the replay button. Again, thank you to all of our guests and thank you for joining us. Enjoy the rest of your day.